Hi, I'm Ken Brown, CEO of Destiny Global, and welcome to this edition of Success Tips. Success Tips is our bonus teachings here at Destiny Global to keep you moving forward between events. Today, we're going to be talking about the law of value, but specifically, we're going to be talking about professional skills. What are professional skills? Professional skills are really your core skills that apply to any industry, actually apply to your home life as well, to allow you to do things more efficiently, better. And as you can tell as you're looking at the list on the board behind me, it involves communication, right? And that's both in work and at home and at your place of worship and really everywhere else in life that you go involves some form of communication. So today I just want to jump right in and start with first talking about active listening. What is active listening? Active listening is actually paying attention to what the person that you're talking to is communicating with you about, and you communicating back to them more or less what they said and your understanding of what they said. What does that do? It validates what the person was telling you, first of all. Second of all, it makes sure that you understood what that person was communicating. I am guilty, as is most men at some point in time, and maybe even some of you ladies, when someone is communicating with you and you're not fully understanding what they're saying, and when you say it back to them, then it can be clarified. Active listening is so important, both at home, with your spouse, with your children, at work, it is imperative, with your coworkers, with those above you, and to make sure that you're completing tasks. If you don't know the task clearly, you're going to likely mess up. So making sure that you're listening and validating what that person is saying to you. The next thing I want to talk to you about, leadership. Now that's a very broad topic, but when you really think about it in a professional skill, it's meaning in the context of taking on something, taking on an idea, a project, a task, and completing it, okay? Leadership, and that's gathering people around and making sure that everyone is doing their part to accomplish that goal. That can be at home, again, with the family cleaning a home. Who's going to be cleaning the kitchen? Who's going to be cleaning the restrooms? Who's cleaning their bedrooms? Making sure that each task is being completed, okay? Leadership also involves clarity, involves active listening. You're going to see that these things build on each other. They're dependent on one another. You're not going to be a great leader if you're not an active listener, by the way. So, in making sure as you're communicating with someone that they can give you back to them exactly what they're going to be doing, their task, things that they're working on, both at home and at work. Problem solving, big one, right? So your ability to think through something. So something's not going right. How are you going to correct it? How are you going to get it back on track? And communicating with your team, if you're the leader, or if you're a team member, how to get a team member back on track is making sure that y'all are sitting down and solving something together. Sometimes someone will think of a solution that really won't work because other people weren't involved, and you may not know exactly what their task was, and it's not going to really solve the problem. It could actually cause more work. And there's an old saying that Ross used to say, Ross Pro, who I work for at EDS, he would say, all of us are smarter than one of us. So as you think through this, making sure that you're involving other people, getting counsel to make sure when you're solving the problem, you're actually solving the problem and not creating yourself more work. The next thing I want to talk about is communication. Now, there's multiple forms of communication. I'm actually communicating to you right now. To make the most effective communication is both verbal, written, and actually seeing something, right? So visual. And when people do that, what it does is allow them to absorb in the way that they receive instruction, right? So when you're communicating something with someone, you want to be sure that they understand what you're saying. You want to understand that they understand, if you're watching a show, what the purpose of that show is. So there's so many elements that go into communication, right? And most of it involves around distractions. So when you're really trying to focus in on communication, make sure that you're eliminating distractions. Just like when I come in this room, I do not bring my cell phone with me over here, especially because things are going to go off. It's going to distract me. I'm waiting on a phone call. I'm waiting on something, or I'm anticipating that I'm going to go to the next thing. Be present where you're at. Give that person that you're communicating with your attention. on both sides of it, the person that's communicating and the person that's listening, okay? And if it's a dialogue, just pay attention, value each other's time, right? Make sure that you're actively listening as you're communicating, and make sure that you're communicating clearly. Sometimes communication can involve hard things. So make sure that you're sharing, even in difficult things, in a way that the person that you're communicating with can understand it, okay? So that is an important one, is really making good decisions, right, is the next one. So decision making. How do you make good decisions? Well, there's an old saying, count the cost. So when you're making a decision, think about if it's going to cost money, if you have the money to do it, number one. Do you have the resources to align and make that thing happen? The second thing you're going to be doing is who is it going to involve to take it? So the resources, not just your money, but the people that it's going to take to do that. And some tasks are simple, right? You need to go get the house cleaned. Okay, clean the house, right? Some of it is fortuitous, meaning that you're going to go do it. You're going to take the action. You're going to go do it. And sometimes that involves inner fortitude to say, I'm going to go get something done. So a critical part of decision making is actually making your mind up that you're going to do it. And when you do make your mind up, do it with your whole heart. Don't do it halfway. Don't do it, in fact, it's actually said, do your work unto God. So as you're doing it, sometimes you can go into something with a bad attitude. Change your attitude. Change your attitude. Do it with your whole heart. Get it done. Do it well. And what you'll actually find is that the person that you did it for, including yourself, you're going to feel better about yourself, or the person you did it for is going to feel good because you actually valued the time and effort that you put into something to make sure it was done well. Okay? The next one, interpersonal skills. Wow, that is a big one. There's so much talk in the workplace today around emotional intelligence. Interpersonal skills goes hand in hand with that, because your interpersonal skills are your ability to communicate with someone, to really know what's going on with them, to really understand the circumstances and environment which you're working in. Right? Let me give you a perfect example of using interpersonal skills. So it's the end of the year. It's so hectic. You're trying to get a list done for all the things that you've got to accomplish before the end of the year. And so you're running around trying to get stuff done, but you're not communicating to your family or your coworkers. Can be either or, and most likely it's both. So you're running around doing all these things, but you're not communicating with people effectively around you to make sure that they're aligned with your goals. So your husband or your wife is off doing something, they're not aligned, and you're trying to get this done. In fact, I've had this happen at my home. My wife was decorating for something and getting something done, and I was over here trying to fix something. So I was getting stuff out, literally were places she was cleaning. That doesn't go well, right? So aligning with someone and aligning with those around you to be sure that anything that you're working to complete can be done, and you're in alignment with them because they're working with you, not against you, to accomplish that. So interpersonal skills are very important at home with the family, but even more important with your coworkers. In fact, interpersonal skills are one of the key things that causes employees to feel undervalued, underappreciated, because they're not involved with you. And back to the other elements that we're talking about in problem solving, or you're not communicating with them in a way that they can understand, and you're just go off, and typically what happens in a place of work is someone says, I'll just do it myself. Instead of taking the time and using their skill to communicate with you on a personal level to make sure that we're all in alignment on what needs to be done, what checkpoints are going to be happening, and when you can come back together to make sure that you're on task and on target with what you're doing. The last thing, oh my goodness. Carmen O'Quinn teaches on this. She did a teaching on this at Dynasty that was just knock dead crazy good. Time management applies to every area of your life. And especially in this season, in the holiday season, there's always something pulling on us, competing for our time. And it's really figuring out and making sure that you're blocking the times that you have, sticking to your guns, especially when it comes to yourself, right? Your self-care, your mental, emotional, and spiritual development. Because if you're continuing to take for that for everybody else, what you're going to find is the holidays become very draining. And so many people don't do this. So make sure that you're blocking out the sections of the day that you're giving for yourself, for your work, for your personal time, for really time with the kids and whatever it might entail for you, right? Some of you have, and we know in our community, there's some people with some extensive hobbies. So making sure your hobbies, you're still getting time for the things that you want to do in alignment with whatever else your family wants to do or at your place of work. So making sure that you are setting up the time blocks and sticking to them as best as your ability. And give yourself extra time if you're going to stores. Why? Because if you've been out there lately, it's crazy, right? So give yourself plenty of time to get to and fro and everything in between, because everything tends to take longer. My own experiences is just going to the grocery store and picking up things that April had asked me to do from H-E-B. I thought it was going to take 15 minutes. I was wrong. Almost an hour later in communicating, hon, I'm going to be a little bit behind because this took longer than I anticipated. Giving yourself extra time for the added traffic that's really out there that we experience during the holiday season. And not planning for that, well, you know what that says, right? Not planning makes you a failure in your mind because you didn't plan for what was going to happen, right? So knowing that things are going to take longer than you expected. So build it into your time frame. Build it into your time management blocks to be sure that you're giving yourself that time. And, you think about professional skills as a whole. Why are these so important? I think we discovered that, right? And that is because it applies to both your personal life, your professional life, your worship life. Every area of your life is affected by professional skills. If you want to gain more skill, I encourage you. Jackie and Carmen right now are doing something called Ignite Your Life. I encourage you to plug into that. It is a monthly teaching that digs into these things and even more on a deeper level than we're going through right now in this 15-minute time slot that we have together, right? We also want to invite you to First Steps to Success, January 27th through 29th in San Antonio, Texas. It's going to be a knock-down, bang-up event for sure, and set your 2023 on the best trajectory you can to make it the most successful year you've had in your life. So thank you for joining this segment of Success Tips. And Merry Christmas to you and your family, and Happy New Year.